for? You got any explosives?
Shit, bro. Yeah, man, fuck. I don't have any on me. Oh shit, you know what? Hold on, let me check my inventory.
Dude, be useful. Put T-posing right there.
Oh, shit. Yeah, dude. Bro, I have exactly what we need. Just one more second.
Fuck, I'm hit, bro. Hurry.
Look what I fucking made, bro. No, they're done for. Don't worry, bro. Good morning, good evening, and good night. Welcome to the channel, guys. Welcome to Foghorn 5. Today is a very special video because I am just a with a rocket launcher. Sorry guys, I had to make that joke just to specify I did say ninja, so don't cancel me please. So this right here is the DIY rocket launcher for under $100. Today we're going to be kind of going over this creation that I made, just another way to enhance your airsoft experience, to kind of just have a fun little Milsim toy with your friends. Anyways, we're gonna kind of go into in-depthly how I built this thing, price breakdown, and kind of talking about what else is out there on the market for airsoft rocket launchers, because why make one when there are already ones out there. So without further ado, let's kick this video off with going into how I built this thing, the price breakdown, everything you need to know to build yourself your own under $100 airsoft rocket launcher. Talking about the price breakdown, under 100 bucks, but kind of. So basically what I mean by that is I did some things, as you can probably see, to sell the look of it being a rocket launcher. I added a couple cool things. I added a emergency button where when you hit it, it shines a red light and sounds an alarm, right? So everything it takes to actually build this thing is under 100 bucks. But once we get into the segment where we're actually kind of upgrading it and putting some cool stuff on it to make it look like a proper rocket launcher, and that's kind of when the price jumps up a little bit. Let's start off with the essentials to build this rocket launcher. So first off, I bought a 10-foot 3.5-inch PVC pipe, or 4-inch PVC pipe if we're going off of denominal numbers. That's gonna cost you around 24 bucks. The next thing we're gonna need is another 10-foot but 1-inch PVC pipe. That's gonna run you about $8. And then we're gonna need a 4-inch ABS female thread coupler. That's 11 bucks. A 4-inch ABS male thread coupler, that's another 11 bucks. Those two pieces are gonna fit within each other. We're gonna need two 4-inch PVC caps. These are like end caps, 78 cents, and we're gonna need two of them, like I said. The next thing we're gonna need, which you could kind of teeter-totter on whether or not it's a design thing or a functional thing, I think to kind of complete the look of a rocket launcher, you need it. It's the 4-inch ABS end coupler. It's just the, you know, ring at the end. I think it just kind of sells really the look of a rocket launcher, and I don't know why you would not want to do that, right? And then we're gonna need a 1-inch PVC button cap coupler. That's not actually what it's called. It's some sort of like end fitting, but I'm using it for my button cap. So basically, if you ran your hand across it or if it's bumping up against you, it's kind of not allowing it to constantly be firing, right? The last two things we're gonna need, I got a barbecue igniter called a Grissom barbecue igniter. I like this one because the metal prongs are actually not just wires, they are like hard metal prongs that can't get bent out of shape. So that's why I went with that one. It's a little bit more expensive. It was 18 bucks, but worth it. And the last thing we're gonna need is just PVC cement. So we're gonna need a way to glue this thing all together because you don't want it falling apart when you're running around with it. And that cement is gonna cost 12 bucks. So the total we are at right now is $90.44. So we have a fully functional rocket launcher with all these components for under $100. Now we're gonna get into basically the alarm system. What we're gonna need is another one of those 1-inch PVC cap button couplers, because now we're adding a secondary button, so we need another thing to make sure, you know, nothing is gonna push it and just sound that alarm constantly, because that's gonna get annoying. 16 gauge wire, that's about 7 bucks, and that's so we could solder and connect all of our wires together. Make sure you get one of those spools where it has black and red together, because that's just gonna make your life easier. And then the LED warning light that I got on Amazon is called a Osmium red light. It was 10 bucks. And the next thing we're gonna need is that little alarm, which I got on Amazon, which is called a electronic buzzer alarm pair. It comes with two. That was 8 bucks. A 16 millimeter momentary button pack. So make sure you get a momentary button, because if you get like a switch button or a clicky button, it's gonna basically be turn on, it's gonna go, turn off. I mean, if that's what you want, that could be what you want, but I just like to hold it and then you let go. And then the very last thing we're gonna need to basically power all the electronics that are going in this thing is a 4-slot AA battery holder with leads. That's gonna run you about like $5. Everything you're wiring is gonna be wired to that, and that's gonna be your source of power. So since we're already talking about batteries, overall this thing actually does rely on batteries, all AA's, to fire and run. So if you didn't know, barbecue igniters actually have a little AA battery inside of there, and that's what's powering that spark to happen. And then obviously to run the electronics, that alarm and that buzzer, 4 batteries. So in total, we need 5 AA's to run this thing. All right, now all together with the essentials and our alarm buzzer system, the total price is going to be $133.19. So we're still very low budget when it comes to actually what is out there for airsoft rocket launchers. So at this point, we're under $200 for a rocket launcher, which is still a very good price. And I still think that's a lot of bang for your buck for what you're getting out of this thing and the pros that this thing has to offer versus other systems that are out there for airsoft rocket launchers. I know you guys are probably all dying to see kind of how it works, how I built it. We're gonna kind of just get into the cool little features. So right here, we have 2 buttons. So I have my alarm button that's on my middle finger, and then normally, as any firearm would be, your index finger is your trigger. Basically, what's gonna happen is when we hit this button right here, it's gonna sound an alarm. So the alarm doesn't lock off the system or anything. It's not like you have to hit the alarm, then this. I wanted that option just because, who knows if you have to be stealthy with it. If you're like pulling up on a vehicle at a Milsim event and you just don't want to sound the alarm, it might be best to just hit the trigger and just run out of there. So I just kind of want to give you that option. Next up, when we hit the trigger, basically what's going on is tube with 2 leads, barbecue igniter leads, that basically when you hit this trigger, it's gonna spark them, and you could probably kind of hear it if I hold it right here by the mic. That is enough to ignite the bottles, and in a second we're gonna go into the bottles. The next features I added were 2 flip-up iron sights, something that you probably don't need. It's just cool, fun little feature alongside with this grip. I thought this grip was a fun feature as opposed to just, holding a tube, which you totally can do. And that might be a little bit more convenient for some of you guys because, if you have to carry this thing on your back, you kind of want to keep it a slim profile, and that was my idea with this. I made 2 little sling points for this sling that I have right here. This one is literally just bent wire, and then I just drilled a hole through this little bracket thing that I found to mount the iron sights on. Just to make it kind of look cool, I found this metal bracket that I just attached to the bottom and spray painted it. Kind of just gives it a fun little look to kind of make it look a little bit more interesting. Once again, something you don't need. Alongside with this shoulder pad of foam right here that I added. So right here on this back end is where the female and male thread coupler piece went. Basically, the reason I designed it like that is I could now unscrew this, and that's why there's this little wire so you don't lose the cap. You unscrew this and you could actually get to all the batteries in here. I very methodically designed this thing so the igniter comes out, I could pop this entire little cap off, stick a battery back in there, put it together. All the wires are accessible. I have like foam spacers between there so things aren't getting pinched and rattling around, and the battery box in there isn't shaking. I mean, the only thing that shakes on this thing is the sling. I would definitely recommend when you are soldering your wires to keep them long, because I had to go back and redo them all because mine were short and I ripped them up. So give yourself a lot of space inside of this back end of this tube to allow for correction and error, because it still is like, oh, I gotta stuff them all in here. The alarm is seated perfectly in this end cap. That was another really cool thing. This end cap piece perfectly sat that alarm, so all I had to do is just drill a hole back there and throw a piece of tape over it and it stays in there. So now a little bit going into making it, there's a couple tricky procedures. Drilling all these bigger sized holes, that's kind of tough to do because you're drilling on a round surface, so make sure you give yourself a pilot hole to make sure that you're hitting the same spot. And you're definitely going to want to step your drill bits up. Don't just start with a big one, start small, medium, large. So the internal tube that the bottle sits around, I wanted to make sure that it was straight inside of there, right? You don't want it to be angled because that might mess up your trajectory. So with those 2 end caps, you want to make sure you measure it however you want to measure it so you land perfectly in the middle, and then same thing, step bit that drill those holes out from small, medium to large, slide that tube in there, and then glue all those pieces together. The part that becomes tricky now is actually sticking that internal tube piece that I made in there with glue. You have to glue it all up and then stuff it down in there and then wipe all the glue inside so you don't interrupt the path of the bottle. So that's a bit of a tricky procedure. You have to be fast with it. Maybe if this video isn't good enough on describing what it took to actually make this, because I know I'm kind of being brief, definitely leave some comments down below and I could kind of touch on it a bit further if you guys need more help. But this thing is actually going to run off of 20-ounce soda bottles. So we're gonna take a propane torch and we're gonna stick it inside of there, and we're not gonna actually ignite the torch, but we're just going to allow gas to leak in there. With this system, it's very cool because you have a 100% reliable source where you're gonna gas these things up, you're gonna stow them with gas, and you save the cap, stuff it in the tube, and then you're gonna fire. So you're gonna always have a reliable fuel source that's easy to use. The one part about this thing that I haven't experimented with much is different kind of soda bottles and things to do to them. So I put a foam end on this one and kind of gave it some fins back here to try to make it fly. The overall performance of this thing is a little lackluster. I mean, I'm sure there's some things I could do to kind of make it better. I just really need to sit down and fire this thing enough times and just play with the rounds and possibly maybe even 3D print a specific projectile. Another consideration is this could kind of act as just a shell, and maybe you can load a ball up in the front. So basically this is just shooting off as a shell, but the ball is actually what your first projectile is. That's just a theory. I haven't tested it yet. Like I said, maybe once I kind of get a better understanding on how to make these fly straighter, how to make this more efficient, I'll revisit that in a video. And then very lastly, what I did to kind of just add one more little touch of flavor to this whole thing is I printed out a bunch of custom made instructions, alarm, trigger, fueling instructions over here, loading instructions on this side. So basically I just have a simple Photoshop app, my iPhone, which I can just kind of make anything I want. And then all I did was just print them out, double stick tape these, and then laminated them so they don't get wet and destroyed. That's just kind of like one little chef kiss of touch to make this thing just look that much closer to a real rocket launcher. Actually, with that all being said, over here on this side is the name of what I'm calling this rocket launcher. This is the MIR, the Mobile Infantry Rocket Launcher. I like that name because you get to say the MIR, so that's kind of funny. So yeah, this is the MIR, guys. So now that we got all those talking points out of the way, let's discuss this thing versus what is actually out there on the airsoft market. So when it comes to comparing this rocket launcher versus what is out there, I'm only going to be talking about rocket launchers that function similarly to it, right? So I'm not going to be talking about those rocket launchers in airsoft where it's a glorified grenade launcher where you just stuff shatter shells or whatever in there, right? Because that's not how this thing functions. This thing is actually launching a projectile. The two kind of leading rocket launchers out there are going to be the VFC Carl Gustaf and the Skit Airsoft RPG-7. Let's go ahead and start with the Carl Gustaf and talk about pros and cons on that. So just quick little rundown. I mean, obviously if you want more information, watch a full video, but with the pros, it's gonna shoot about 100 to 200 feet, depending on what you're shooting out of it. It functions and reloads like a real rocket launcher, so you are getting a bit more of that milsim experience with it. There's a lot of shell options to fire, so you could shoot tag-ins, you could shoot all the normal airsoft grenade launcher grenades, other projectiles in there, stuff, foam balls, just kind of anything you want, and it has good recoil. It has some fairly good recoil. Cons about the Carl Gustaf, from what I've heard, is most shells will literally take like 1/3 to 1/4 of a can of gas. So a very expensive system and a long reload process. Shells, fuel, ammo are more expensive and they're more proprietary. So with my system, I could just go to the store, grab some bottles, and at Walmart, you could get a thing of propane. You only need to fuel these for a couple seconds at a time. Comparatively, Carl Gustaf is very cool because you are getting a real rocket launcher. You are getting that real feel to reload it for the price point of $700 versus under 100 or 200. That's up to you to decide if it's really worth it. All right, so next up, we're gonna talk about the Skit RPG-7, which this one is very, very cool. Pros about the Skit Airsoft rocket launcher: it has a real working warhead, and some of them will blow up on impact. So they kind of work like the Thunder Bees, where there's a CO2 cartridge in there, and then once it hits something, it pops. A really cool experience because you're getting a loud boom when you're shooting it and a loud boom when it lands wherever it lands, so that's very fun. It has a great build exterior. The Carl Gustaf, I can't say so much, it looks kind of plasticky, but the RPG-7 looks phenomenal. It's a very well-built looking rocket launcher. It works like the real thing. It uses less gas than the Carl Gustaf. It shoots once again to that 100 to 200 foot range. There is good recoil on it too. Cons about the RPG-7: when paired with explosive warheads, you need gas and CO2. So now you need two separate proprietary fuel sources to run this thing. There's proprietary warheads, right? So it's a very specialized thing that you have to make sure you buy the Skit Airsoft warheads every single time. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. From what I've seen, a lot of videos is they can be very, very leaky. So a lot of people fuel it up right when they're about to shoot it, flip it around, and then fire it. So, I mean, most times if you're using a rocket launcher, it needs to be a quick throw it on your shoulder, boom, and then move, right? So defeats it a little bit. And because of that, it is kind of a tedious reload process, especially if you're using the explosive warheads, because you have to fuel it, put the rod on there, put the warhead, now screw on the explosive warhead. So it's a lot of steps to just shoot one, and then to think about continuously, how many times am I gonna be able to get this thing off? Because maybe you're playing a Milsim event and there's just a lot of dudes, you want doom, 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 right? You can't really do that with this. It's gonna be a tedious experience, and to really pull it off quickly, you're gonna need a couple guys there to kind of step by step through the reload process with you. And my last con for it, when it's firing out of the rocket launcher, it's not very loud, which you're kind of losing that Milsim experience with the rocket launcher. You know, it's more of as opposed to a boom, you know? So if you want like that pop sound, you're not gonna get it. You are gonna get it on impact, which is cool if you're using those explosive warheads. So it's gonna boom. But not knocking it, it is a very cool system, and I definitely see its pros comparatively to what I have. And at the end of the day, the RPG is gonna be coming at a price of $500, so a little bit lower than the Carl Gustaf, and I think kind of a better experience than the Carl Gustaf, but still, we're at 500 bucks compared to what I have, which is, you know, under 100 to $200. So lastly, we're gonna be talking about the pros and cons on the MIR, my rocket launcher. So pros: very cheap to make, very cheap ammo, very cheap fuel source. Once bottles are filled, there's no tedious reload that needs to really be done. You know, you could fuel these as you're sitting around doing whatever, and they're ready to go. You just stuff them in, and then bam, it's gonna fire off. It is actually very loud, which is really cool. It does create a very big boom when it fires off. It has good blowback, and obviously it's customizable to look however you want, because the power is in with you creating it, because it's DIY. You could make it look however you want. You could probably make it look like an RPG if you want, or if you want to make it look like a Carl Gustaf or any rocket launcher out there. So it is kind of cool. I just thought it was fun for me to just kind of make my own, as opposed to mimicking something that already exists, because I like it. It's a personal experience for me to build something like this, so I preferred that. So we're going to talk about cons now about the MIR. So my first thing is actually kind of a pro and a con. It makes a little bit of a flame when it fires out. So it is pretty cool, because at nighttime, if you shoot this thing, you'll see like a streak of, you know, fire kind of fly out, and you'll see like a glowing round kind of. It is a pro and a con because, you know, it could be a fire hazard potentially. They might not allow you to use it at certain fields. From what I've experienced, the flame dissipates like instantly. Once it fires out, it's only, you know, milliseconds that flame is actually igniting. By the time it gets to wherever it's going and hitting the ground, that flame is long gone. That's not a problem as long as you're using propane. Another con is you need to carry around a propane torch, so that can be a little bit dangerous. If you are going to be doing this system and get a propane torch, make sure you get one with a lock. This one right here, it has a safety, so I can't press it, and then if I just spin it, now I could fire it off. So if you are planning on actually carrying this on you when you're doing whatever event you're doing, make sure you have a lock, or just unscrew it to be double safe. One little plus that is actually kind of cool is you get to carry around a torch and a rocket launcher. You're basically the engineer class in Battlefield. Another con is the bottles don't fly very straight. It's going to take a little bit of experimenting to actually figure out how this thing is gonna shoot properly. The bottles will kind of twist in the air, like do a flat spin. Of course, it's not shooting straight out like you'd imagine like a football, but it is still getting to its target, spinning in a goofy way. It is still effective, in that sense. And another con, its range is a little bit lower than those other systems. The con is there's a little bit of experimenting you're gonna need to do to actually figure out how to get these rockets to shoot properly, or these bottles to shoot properly. And maybe once on my end I figure out how to work that a little bit better, make another video kind of talking about how to properly build your bottles. And then my very last con for the MIR is you have to build it. So you're not buying it, you know, you can't just order it and it's gonna come to you and then you're gonna open it and it's ready to go. You have to build it, you have to put it together. So for some people that is a very big con. You know, they're just not savvy in building stuff like that and they could mess it up. I've been fabricating and building things like pretty much my whole life. Ever since I was a kid, it was just kind of a hobby that I've always liked to do. So building things comes very easy to me, and I will take that opportunity every single time. If you tell me, hey, I could build a $100 rocket launcher or buy a $500 rocket launcher, I will confidently build that $100 rocket launcher. But some people just don't want to deal with that. And this thing, if you want to do that more upgraded system with the alarm, you have to solder. I don't know if you could solder or not, which that's a whole other thing alongside knowing how to build it. You need to have that skill. If you're really eager to have one, talk with your buddies, see if they know how to build stuff, if they know how to solder, maybe make it a team project. Be like, hey, let's all pitch together and build this thing and buy all the parts. So we are now getting to the very climactic point of the video where we actually get to test fire this thing a couple times, kind of show you how it works. Let's get into how we're going to load this thing to actually use it and play with it. So unscrew this bottle and save the cap. And then the safety on the torch, we're gonna wanna flip that up. I hold it vertically because propane is heavier than air, so you kinda wanna make sure that it all flows in there properly. I hold it in here for roughly about, I've been doing 8 to 10 seconds. Upping that amount could give you a stronger shot, but just be warned, be careful with that. I don't know how volatile this system could be. This whole bottle can explode in the chamber, so just be careful. If you are gonna experiment with more amounts of gas, do it step by step. Add a second every single time, just to be sure. You don't wanna hurt yourself, and I definitely don't wanna, advocate for you guys hurting yourself with my system. We're gonna load this thing. I'm gonna do 10 seconds. Put this down, and like I said, propane is heavier than air, so as long as we hold it downwards, we should be able to just cap it off and it should be fine. Once we have the cap on nice and secured, this thing is 100% ready to go. Just really make sure that you're not actually igniting that flame in there, because you could warp your bottle, you could be inhaling, plastic fumes, and even if you have some gas in there already and you accidentally click that torch, this thing could probably blow off and go flying, and it could burn you or hurt you. So just be careful with it in that sense. I'm gonna go ahead and load the other ones that I have, and we're gonna start firing this thing. I got one round with the fins and everything on it, and then one just plain bottle, so we'll kind of go ahead and see the difference. This thing actually is loud, so that is why I'm wearing my Peltors, and I'm going to put on some safety glasses just because I'm gonna promote safety and you don't want to have anything flying into your eyes. So here we go. Let's get this thing loaded, shoulder it. I'm gonna go ahead and flip out my sights. Get it ready to go. Unscrew this cap, and we're gonna stuff it in now. So this is the rocket with the fins. And now we're gonna do the bottle with nothing on it. Testing out different types of bottle shapes. Try, Pepsi bottles, Mountain Dew bottles, all that different stuff, because who knows, one might fly better than the other. From what I've experienced, root beer 20-ounce bottles seem to work the best because they kind of have more of a chamber to hold more gas. So here we go. So that one kind of flew off to the side, as we could see, and I think the fins are really kind of helping it fly. It's just, I need to figure out a way to kind of straighten that out. Like I keep saying, there needs to just be a little bit more experimenting with how to actually get these things to fly straighter. Even though the bottles do kind of spin out, they seem to just be more accurate that way. So, I mean, if that's kind of just the trajectory that it needs to fly and work properly, I mean, I'm fine with that. If it's still hitting something, it counts as a hit in airsoft. So I'm gonna try my best to kind of gauge how loud it is. It does make my ears ring just a tiny bit. I've shot it inside too, which that definitely makes it a lot louder and makes your ears ring out pretty good. It's not as loud as a Thunder Bee, probably somewhere in the range of like a medium firework. My probably closest direct sound comparison, which is kind of specific because I play drums, it's probably sticking your head pretty close to a snare drum and just hitting that thing, like doing a rim shot. And once again, like I talked about before, in Airsoft, you're not really using a rocket launcher because it's the most efficient thing you could be using, right? You could use so many other things to get the job done in that sense. It's just really just a fun experience item, you know? You just have it, just have fun with it. You know, with that being said, obviously, as we can kind of see the performance, it's not the best, it's a little lackluster. Last little test shot of this thing. Alrighty then, guys, hope you guys enjoyed the MUR. I hope you guys had fun watching it test shoot, learned a little bit on how to potentially build your own rocket launcher, and hopefully I inspired you to actually go out of your way and build your own, because I mean, there's a lot of cheap options out there to kind of get your hands on something like this, and it's just a fun experience to have in Airsoft. So with the price of under 100 bucks to be able to get your chance to do that, you know, I definitely say that is a plus. I know the performance on this thing is a little lackluster. Like I said, I kind of need to experiment with it more. I'm hoping I could get it to be a little bit more effective. Maybe the system that I'm using, where I'm just firing rockets, isn't the best. Like I said before, maybe a ball up front and then a bottle. So I don't know, I really just have to test the thing out, and I'll kind of revisit it once I figure out how to actually get this thing to shoot pretty effectively. Obviously, there's better rocket launchers out there. You know, you could get a potato cannon and shoot a Nerf ball out of that, and then you're genuinely getting like an effective rocket launcher that will really hit targets. Just for the fun of this thing, just to kind of say that you have it and you can shoot it, and just for like a day game, you know, I think this is like the perfect like day game rocket launcher. Like if you're doing a milsim event, maybe you want something that could actually hit out at some further range, because you know there's buildings, there's cars, there's trucks. It's perfect for room clearing and just having fun at a little, you know, Sunday game of Airsoft with a rocket launcher like this. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys enjoyed watching me fire off this MUR and kind of just learn about making it. Thank you guys for all the support. As of making this video, I think we're about to hit 700 subscribers. The channel's been growing like so fast. It's so awesome to see. I love how many of you guys are engaged with our content and leaving, you know, such nice comments. It's really cool to see that all the content that we're making is paying off and you guys are enjoying the quality of the videos and all that stuff. So yeah, thanks once again so much for the support, guys. Make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Comment sections are always going crazy. People get to tell each other what's right and what's wrong. Who doesn't like doing that? So make sure you go ahead and leave your comment. Tell me what I did wrong or tell me what I did right. Hope you guys enjoyed the MIR, and I will catch you on the next one.